All right, how we doing today? So, what I want to go ahead and cover is how to efficiently build muscle. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of misinformation about what actually matters. So, through this one here today, I want to, as concisely and simply as I can, cut through what doesn't matter and then what does matter and what we should be focusing on within those things that do matter at the end of the day. Because yeah, there's just a lot of misinformation. So let's try to cut through as much of it now. Now, like what I want to point out to you is the picture that I'm using here is this is December to December. Don't remember which years, but I think it was like 2021 to 2022, somewhere in there. But the point is, you can see some significant muscle growth. Not like I didn't have any in the left, but you can see that there's significant more on the right. And I still have some semblance of abs on the right, not quite as much. So it was a year of me really figuring out what is important, what do I need to focus on, and then just hammering it as best as I could. Okay. So that's how I ultimately got to that spot. And everything that I'm going to be talking about in here are things and mistakes that I've made, but also what I've learned on the back end of it. So, come on. There we go. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about what doesn't matter first. So, the first thing is how much weight you're actually lifting. While we do want to see progress in the amount of weight long term, and I'm going to get to what we need to actually focus on for that last today, how much weight you're actually lifting doesn't matter. The number one question that most clients ask me when they're new with me, they're like, am I lifting enough weight? Like, is this enough? Or some question that sounds somewhere similar to that. And what I always say is like, I don't care where you're starting. I care that you make progress from wherever you at. So how much weight you're lifting now doesn't matter. If you're still lifting the same weight in 2 to 3 months, then we have an issue. Okay. So I just want that to get into everybody's brain. Don't worry about where you're at now. Focus on the progress that you're making. And we're going to talk about what is the effective way to do that as part of this today too. But I want you to get that out of your brain first and foremost. Don't look at what the guy next to you is doing, what the guy before on the bench before you is doing. Focus on where you're at and making progress from there. Okay. Second thing that doesn't matter is having the perfect workout split. While we do need to have some way of splitting up what muscles we're training when, you should not be focused on trying to find the perfect split or copying some other influencer split because they look fucking good, right? Their life is different than yours. The demands that they have in their life are different than yours. The job that they work is different than yours. The muscles that are developed or underdeveloped are different than yours. Their training experience is different than yours. So at the end of the day, you need to figure out what's best for you. But I am going to talk about like what is going to matter when it comes to focusing on what we're picking from that standpoint. And then the last thing that, again, I hear a lot of people talking about that we don't need to focus too much on is how many, well, this is backwards, how many reps you're doing. And to a degree, how many sets you're doing as well too. And I'm going to talk specifically about what I mean by that in a little bit, but I want to just focus on the reps here. Anything from 5 to 30 reps has been shown through multiple studies to be the number and the range in which you can effectively build muscle when you are training close enough to failure, which is the little asterisk at the end of it. So at the end of the day, if it's 30 reps, but you fucking hit failure on 30, chilling. If it's 5 reps, but you hit failure or close to it on 5, chilling. You're going to build some muscle. Okay. So don't think about like this one's better or this one's worse. There are ones that make more sense depending on your goals, where your training history is at, what areas you're training in that specific context or in that workout. So there's a lot of things that come into factor here. So there's no perfect rep range, right? And then from a set standpoint, like we do want to have enough volume, enough sets throughout the week to stimulate growth, but more does not always equal better. And that's the main thing that I want you to focus on here, because that's a mistake that I made. And I'm sure a lot of people have made that too, thinking as many sets as you can leads to more growth. Because in other areas of our life, like work, or like if I was in sales before I was in training, and if you're in a similar position to that, you're always like, yeah, the more outreach I do, the better. The more conversations I have, the better, right? The more I do, the better my results are going to be. It's not quite the same when it comes to sets being performed in the gym, because you need to have recovery as well. So let's talk about what does matter now. So the main things that I want to talk about at the gate, because these are the two main things that really make the difference at the end of the day, are form and intensity. Intensity is actually going to be a little bit more important, but form is still going to be my number one, because if you have bad form, you could hurt yourself and then you're not going to be lifting any more weight anyways. Then you're done, right? So at the end of the day, you need good form, you need good technique, okay? Now, there's different ways in which you can go about figuring this out. One is to obviously work with a coach, right? But you can still learn from YouTube University or Instagram University, as a lot as I would call it these days, because there's a lot of good information out there. All right. Now, the nuance to this is that everybody's body is a little bit different. All right. I broke my back 3 times when I was in high school. My body and how I have to train it is different than somebody that has never had that injury, because it is a chronic injury that I've felt for my entire life, and still sometimes sitting for too long hurts my back. Right? My right glute and my left glute work differently. My left hip flexor, my right hip flexor work a little bit differently because of imbalances that have been created. Now, those don't stop me from training, from making progress, from doing what I need to do, but I need to be aware of them when I make decisions about what I am doing when I am working out. And the same may go for you. If you had a shoulder injury playing sports growing up, or from a car crash or whatever it may be, there may be specific things that you need to focus on to effectively train from a form and technique standpoint to not only stay safe, but also get the most out of your lifts. So that is where guidance from a coach can be really valuable. But if you've never had any injuries, you've never had anything weird like that, then yeah, focus on the right cues that you can find online from a friend. Only if that friend's got some education, but I digress. So form, number one, is truly going to be important. Some people say it's not, but honestly, I think that they've just never had to deal with somebody that has injuries or anything like that at the end of the day. So that's going to be number one for me. Now, when it comes to intensity, what you really want to focus on is being close to failure. Now, like again, taking studies here, what studies have shown, meta-analysis on this, is that the reps that produce the greatest stimulus to actually start the muscle protein synthesis process, which is the process of actually building muscle, is 0 to 5 reps away from failure. So 0 is like you've hit absolute failure, which is actually a lot harder to do than a lot of people make it seem online, which is why you really want to be focusing on getting close to failure. Okay. Because if you are close to failure, let's say 1, 2, maybe even 3 reps away, then you're going to be in a position where you are going to be, yes, fatigued, but not as fatigued as if you hit absolute failure. Meaning that if you have slightly less fatigue, but still enough stimulus to build muscle, then you can go in and do another set to, again, build that stimulus response to spark the muscle protein synthesis to build muscle. Okay. So while you do want to train close to failure, and I think there is a benefit to training to failure once in a while, the majority of the time you want to be about 1 to 3 reps away from failure. I'd really say 1 to 2 reps away from failure. Think about it like this: 5 to 10% of your sets should be, that you count, should be all the way to failure. From fail-safe exercises, barbell squats, I would not recommend hitting all-out failure every single time unless you have a very competent spotter as well as safeties for it, right? Deadlifts, would not recommend hitting all-out failure every single time, right? But leg extensions, dumbbell curls like I'm doing here, you can hit all-out failure without hurting yourself, because if the weight drops, it's not going to fall on you. It's not going to fall on somebody else. Just still try to control that weight down, because if you do kind of, right, that could like throw your elbow joint out or something. Like that even felt weird doing that, right? So 5 to 10% of the time, hit all out failure. The rest, the 90, 95% of the time of the sets that you are tracking, make sure that they are within 1 to 3 reps of failure. Now, if you're new and starting out, you might be thinking like, well, I'm training really hard. How do I know if I've hit failure? Well, there's 2 key indicators that I want you to keep an eye out for. And it's not when you feel the burn. You're going to feel the burn, hopefully, far before you actually hit failure in the target muscle. Okay. So, because I've talked about this before, the burn is your muscle fibers sliding past each other. It's called, I'm not even going to say that called. Fuck. I want to remember that name now. Anyways, the 2 ways in which you're going to know. Your reps slow down. So as the set goes on, the reps in the hard part, right? Like pushing up on a bench press, pulling down on a lat pull down, those parts start to get more difficult. When those start to get more difficult, that is a sign, and they go slower, that is a sign that you are getting closer to failure. If your form starts to break down, right? Like let's say I'm doing this dumbbell curl and I start like leaning back or crunching forward or something like that to try to get the reps up, or shrugging my shoulders, whatever it could be, right? Anything that takes the tension away from the target muscle and is improper form or technique, that means that you are getting closer to failure. Now, that does not mean that that is when you stop the set. No. Because that just shows that you're close to failure. So what you want to do in that moment, let's say I'm trying to lean back when I'm doing my bicep curls as an example, which you're starting to see me do in this picture right here, is one, using a bench helps because there's only so far back that I can go, right? But you want to fight to, like, even though I'm coming back here, you want to fight to keep your position and still curl up with that weight, using the curl example. So essentially you want to fight to keep good form when it gets hard to maintain good form. Hopefully that makes sense. Because when your technique does break down, that is a certain type of failure, but it's not the type of failure that you want because you're overcompensating. You're using something else. So that's what we don't want at the end of the day. We want to be at that point. We want to be playing around, flirting with it, but we don't want to like let our form fully break down just to get the rep up. That is what I consider ego lifting, right? Because you're not actually doing anything for the growth response that you want. You're just satisfying your ego. So those are how you know that you're training close to failure, right? Now there's something specific I want to talk about, which is how we approach our sets. So I've kind of already let the cat out of the bag that I believe in pyramid sets, reverse pyramid sets, I should say. Now here's the reason. I'm going to get to warm-ups next, so this is going to provide a bit more context with it. But once a muscle is warmed up, you should be going for your heaviest weight out the gate. If my biceps, like I've already done lat pull downs, I've already done rows, I've already done other exercises, and I'm doing my biceps later in the workout, my biceps don't need any warming up. They're not the main muscle in any of those, but they're part of all of them. So I don't need to really warm up with any weight. The first couple reps of the set, if I'm doing 8 to 10 reps, which is somewhere within the range that I typically lift in, I don't need it, right? If I was trying to curl, which I would never recommend this, if I was trying to curl max weight for 3 to 5 reps, yeah, maybe it would make sense to do a feeler set first, or a set to really prime them and get them going. But that's not the case. And I don't think that that is a smart way to train arms, again, unless you want to satisfy your ego. But for me, that's how I go about it. So the reason why I like the reverse pyramid is because you're basically starting high. You're hitting that maximum weight for the maximum amount of reps. That's the set that I typically am hitting all out failure. Or like if I get that last rep, I'm like, I fought for it because it was going up this slow at the top, but then I got it, right? It's like, all right, I'm a rep or so away from failure. I'm not getting my next one. That is the position where you're like, all right, I'm good. I'm cooling right there. That's a rep away from failure. So if that happens, and let's say you're, for easy numbers, let's say you're curling 30-pound dumbbells when you do this, all right? Then you want to ask yourself going into the next set, can I hit my rep range by staying at this weight with the same control, tempo, all those things? If the answer is yes or maybe, stay where you're at. Find out, right? Test yourself, challenge yourself to see if you can do it again. If it's not, and you're like, there's no, like I just did 8 out of my 8 out of 10, I just barely did 8, not happening again, cool. Lower the weight down to the 25s and then go for it. And then see what happens again. Go for the same intensity. Go to try to get closer to as close as you can to failure. Let's say it's 9 reps this time. You didn't get all the way to the 10, but you're pushing for it, hopefully. And you get 9 reps and you're like, that was it. I was capped out. Then ask yourself again for this third and last set, can I maintain form, tempo with this weight within my rep range, 8 to 10? If you think you can, or maybe, not sure, fuck around and find out. Test yourself. If you're like, no way in hell, which I would say if you got 9 reps, you should be testing yourself. But if you're like, no way, not happening, cool. Drop the weight down to the 20s now, okay? So that's how you go about it. You can also do a reverse pyramid where you just allow yourself to do less and less reps while keeping the same weight. That works as well too. Because even though you're doing less reps, like you're basically hitting failure, basically a rep away from it every time because the number of reps is continuing to go down. That is typically what I suggest if somebody's really hell-bent on getting stronger, because then you're just getting your muscles used to lifting heavier weight, right? But if you're just going for aesthetics, you're just going for building muscle because you just want to look good naked, then I would recommend dropping the weight to keep within the rep range, depending on what it is, right? I have specific rep ranges for certain things for my clients because this isn't a super necessary thing, but there is some science that shows that like the overall amount of time under tension can't help with things. That's a big thing that's argued back and forth on the internet. I don't think it's the most important thing, which is why I don't have it in here today, but I think it's something to be considered still. So that's why with my clients, I do keep that in mind for them. And that's why I typically am telling them to drop the weight, unless they say like, hey, I just want to be strong as I can possibly be across the board. Then I'm like, cool, let's start high, start with that heavy weight and just keep that weight all the way through. That's the technique that I've been doing recently on my squats because I've been wanting to get my squat stronger, just to kind of plant some seeds as to different ways you can go about it. But ultimately, start high and keep pushing from there. Now, warming up. Oh man, I forgot to put a picture on this one. My bad, guys. This looks ugly. Okay, so there's two things I want you to keep in mind from a warm up, right? Let me give you a third thing that's not on the page. A warm-up should never tire you out. You should never feel tired at the end of a warm-up. If you do, it's not a warm-up. That's the workout now, okay? And like, I know that there's like HIIT classes and stuff like that where they do that, but the whole point of that thing is you're exhausting yourself, right? That's not necessarily what our goal is when we are training for muscle growth in the gym. Like the goal isn't to exhaust ourselves. The goal is to create a stimulus that causes the muscles to grow. That's why I spent so much time on the intensity piece just now, okay? So your warm-up from a strength training standpoint should not be tiring you out, okay? Should be priming the muscles to take on the load without getting injured. That's the idea, right? Like it says right there, get the blood flowing, make sure the joints are primed before adding more load, okay? So from a pre-workout movement standpoint, what I suggest is it's a corrective exercise continuum. So it's something specific, but it is the best way to go about a warm up. So you start with, I'm not going to use the words that they use because I don't feel like boring you, but you start with foam rolling or gunning. So that kind of puts a little pressure on the muscles, kind of starts to loosen them up. Then you want to go into ideally a dynamic stretch. If you have specific situations that require some areas to be static stretched first and then go into dynamic, that is okay, but you want to be intentional about it. So as a general rule of thumb though, go from a foam rolling or a light gunning into a dynamic warm up. Dynamic is movement. You're doing this, you're doing the hamstring scoops. You're doing some light, no body weight reverse lunges to get the glutes and the hip flexors warmed up, right? Though that is a dynamic warm up. And then if you need it, again, for specific areas, the only area I really do this with my glutes because of my back injury. Sometimes an activation exercise or set can help just align the muscles, get them working in the right way before you go out and do it. But again, you never want this to be something that's tiring. You don't want it to take more than 5 to 10 minutes. You just want it to be specific and get your muscles ready for the exercise and movements and the muscles that you're going to be training that day. Okay. Now that's the beginning of your workout. Now, feeler sets. I stole this from Jay Cutler, professional bodybuilder, who I think won Olympia a couple times and just has a great, vast knowledge. So I'm stealing this 100% from him. But like, let's say you're doing a push workout and you start with a cable fly, and then you go into a bench press or a dumbbell bench press. Your chest is warm coming from that cable fly to the cable chest press. Or let's say it's later in the workout and you're doing a seated dip or a JM press or something like that to hit your triceps after you've been hitting chest for the workout. When you do these things, again, you don't want to get yourself fatigued, but maybe you feel as though you want to set just to get the form down. You want to feel how it feels going through that range of motion real quick. So do a feeler set. What this is you do like 50% of the weight or lower even. Maybe a little higher depending on what it is if you really need the muscle to be primed, but somewhere in that range, like 40 to 60% max. And then you're only doing like 3 to 4 reps max, right? And you just go through it and it's just to feel it out. How's my body feeling today? Do I need to stretch? Does this area feel a little tight right now? Is it hard for me to lock out? What's going on, right? Just feel your body out a little bit and feel out the movement, get yourself used to it, and then go into it. That's a feeler set. So that's something that I tell my clients to sprinkle in as necessary. Like for me, I only really do that in the example I gave. Right now, my push day, I'm doing cable flies into an incline Smith press. So for that incline Smith press, I'll do a feeler set with about 60% of my weight. Get it down, feel good, do 2 or 3 reps, slap the full weight on, catch my breath, feel good, go into my sets from there. Okay. Now, a few other things like a recovery and split, which I said I was going to talk about, and I'm already talking more than I said I was going to on this one. So I'm going to try to be succinct here. So let's actually start with, well, let's start with volume. Okay. So I really hit the nail on the head with the reps, right? 5 to 30, that's what counts. Okay. Now from sets, there's a little bit more nuance here. All right. And there's a little bit wider variety that we can deal with. I would say a good general rule of thumb is somewhere for a muscle you really want to grow, somewhere between 10 to 12 sets per week is fine and going to be great actually, because that's also, you can fit that into 1 to 2 days of lifting this. And that can help you if you're doing that many sets across the board from upper body muscles and lower body muscles. You can get in 3 or 4 workouts covering all that within a week. Okay. You can do more and see more growth, but that's if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, which I don't think that you are, which is why you're paying attention to this right now. You just want to look good naked and maintain your lifestyle. Right. So what I would say for you is like for chest, that's an area that a lot of my guys want to grow, or arms, or even glutes too. Nobody likes a flat ass. So for these areas, like think about somewhere between 10 to 12 sets. And those sets, you're only counting the ones that are within that 1 to 3 reps of failure. Okay. That's where you want to be. Now, the reason why you want that is because you want to be able to still recover from what you're doing throughout the week. Right. So if you want to hit chest twice in a week, which I do recommend if you have the time for it, it's going to help you to maximize growth. Then maybe hit 5 or 6 of those sets on one day, another 5 or 6 on the other day. For me personally, right now, today I did 9 today, and I will do 3 on Friday. That's my 12 for the week for chest. And that's it. Okay. So that's how I split it up. I could adjust it a little bit more, but for where I am right now and how everything else is split up for the week, that's what makes the most sense for me. Okay. So those are the things that I would want you to consider when it comes to sets and how you should be breaking that up. And the biggest thing when it comes to recovery on that one, and this leads us into the split piece too, is you want to make sure when you're going in to train that muscle again, that it's not fatigued. Right? If your chest is sore and you're going to train it again, that's too close. That's too close. Right? Now, this might happen your first week or 2 weeks of a new program, or if you're just getting into it, because you're typically sore for a little bit longer in these periods of something new. But at the end of the day, if that's constantly how it is, that's not a good sign. You want to space it out a little bit. Maybe reduce the volume the first day and add a little bit more to the second day. Maybe space the days out a little bit longer rather than doing them on Monday and Wednesday, try them on Monday and Thursday. See how that works. Okay. Those are the things that you want to keep in mind. Now, split doesn't matter. Right now, my Saturdays, I do legs and then arms. Right? Why do I do that though? I do that because my Friday workout is a full upper body, and there's specific things I want to work on. There's single arm movements that I want to work on those days to even my sides out. So that takes a little bit more time. So to spread out my volume, my leg day isn't crazy on Saturday. So I go ahead and I finish it with arms. Plus I enjoy that. I got a pump walking out of the gym on a Saturday. Feels good. So it's something that I enjoy. So again, from a split standpoint, it doesn't matter how you break it up, right? Like I said, I'm doing legs with arms right now. So most people would say that that's crazy, but it's not. It's totally fine because of the way everything is spread out at the end of the day. Okay. Because even when I hit triceps today, they don't feel sore or anything like that from my Saturday training. Okay. It was only one day in between, but it was plenty for them, right? They felt good. They were ready to go today. And I know this about my body. Maybe it might be a little bit different for you, right? So what I always recommend when it comes to a split, think about what you want to train, what you want to, how many days and time you have throughout the week. What are the areas that you want to focus on? So pick the volume, like chest, arms. All right. You want to make sure you fit your 10 to 12 sets into both of those, or all 3 of those, I should say. Biceps, triceps, chest, right? Start with those and then kind of work your way through there. All right. What are the things you want to focus on? How many sets do you want to evolve them? And then you can split it up from there. Again, this is something that I do for my clients. I talk through what do they want to focus on, how many days a week can they strength train, and then I make a suggestion from there. But then I always tell them we got to monitor your body response, right? See how you're feeling. If, for that example, if your chest is sore going into the second chest workout of the week, we need to do something about that. Or if the first chest workout of the week is sore from the last one, still got to do something about that. So those are the little things that you need to pay attention to, because again, not all of them are perfect for everybody. You need to find what makes most sense for you at the end of the day. But just know that try the things that you see from the influencers online, but don't think that it's perfect or you're wrong just because it doesn't feel right for you. Okay. So that's the main thing I want you to think about there. Now, though, I swear I put a picture on this one, so that's upsetting. Now, the last thing that I want you to think about is like most people don't look at progression like this. They think that more weight is the only way that you can progress, but that's not true. What I teach my clients that if you want to safely and effectively progress for the long term, so your body not only feels good, but you can move it well into your later years, well, yes, building muscle so you look good naked right now. We want a lot out of our lives. That's okay. The way that I tell them to think about it is find a weight that you're at for the current rep range. And the first, we're going to work on control and tempo. All right. We're going to make sure that you have control through the full range of motion, or at least your active range of motion. You've got a nice controlled tempo during the eccentric. So the easy part of the rep, like on the way down on a bench press. And then you're able to complete the full press up well too. Okay. So that's the first thing that I have them focus on, control / tempos with it. Then once we have that down, then it's like, all right, yeah, let's push ourselves to add reps, right? The control is going to go down as you're trying to add those reps. That is okay. That is to be expected, right? But you work on control and reps until you get to the top of your rep range. Let's say you started at 8 with 50s for dumbbell bench press. You want to work until you get those all the way up to 10. And then, and only then, once you've got great control, you've increased the reps. Now it's time to go ahead and increase the weight. And only start with a small increment of like 5 pounds, maybe 10 if you're feeling hot, and then go from there. But your reps are going to go down. Your control is probably going to go down a little bit, and that's okay. You start the formula over again. You start with control, then reps, then weight. Okay. So this is a detailed breakdown as to what are the things that I focus on and don't focus on. All right. So use this, steal it, take all this information, apply it. And if you still have further questions and you're like, I've talked a lot about how I go about this with my clients today. If you still have more questions, if you're like, you know what, Troy, I want to hear a little bit more about that. Well, I got a special offer for you. Okay. So if you made it all the way through this, you're thinking about, I want to really dive into this. I want to really figure all this stuff out for you specifically. Then cool. Schedule a discovery call for me, right? Just because you schedule that call does not mean that you have to sign up for training for me. Does not mean anything like that. I'm still going to give you everything that you need from the conversation that we have and the information that you give me. I'm still going to give you a game plan, but go ahead, book that call and know that there is a guarantee, right? Because we will agree upon a goal for you to hit in the first 60 days, whether it's a weight loss goal, whether it's a strength goal, whether it's just getting the formula, getting the weight and the control and the form down for exercises, whatever it is, we're going to agree to something. And if you don't hit that in the first 60 days, then you will get all your money back and I'll continue to work with you until you do achieve that end result. Okay. So that is my guarantee to you. So if you want to hear a little bit more, there's going to be a link in the comments to go ahead and book some time with me. So use that. Let's have a chat. And until I speak or hear from you or meet you, have a great one. Now, how do I stop this?